Alrighty guys, so I have a new deck profile for you guys today. Today I will be going over the Dark Assault deck that I made a couple of months ago. Now, let me just say a little bit about the origin of this deck. A friend of mine loves the Dark Creator, and he loves playing this card a lot. So, he would always try all of these weird builds with the Dark Creator, and then I was like, you know what? This deck needs some help. And when I mean help, I mean consistency. So I decided to combine the deck with Elemental Heroes for consistency, maybe throw in some tour guides, add some Call the Haunted to bring out Dark Lord Zerato easier, add 2 Greffers and 2 Armageddonites to make Greffer always get in the graveyard, and then, have Dark Arm to, have some more explosive power, BLS because you have a lot of lights, and, Gores is a staple, Sangan and Night Assailant work with tour guides. So that's essentially how all of the monsters came in place. And I realized that this deck is pretty competitive. I mean, I've tested this in rated, I've tested it in unrated, and I won quite a few duels with it. And I've also helped my friend win a lot of duels with it. So I realized this deck is probably a tier 2 deck. I think somebody can make this deck pretty good. If you guys have a way to make this deck better, please tell me. So let me go a little bit into the strategy of the deck. Like I said, you always want to get Dark Lord Zerato in the graveyard. You always want to get these cards in the graveyard too, if possible. You want to use Tour Guide's effect to manipulate her so that she can get another Dark in the graveyard. And that way you can bring out the Dark Creator. He's one of the most important cards of the deck, if not the most important, because he has to special summon any random Dark from your graveyard. Preferably it can be Dark Lord Zerato, it can be Dark Lord Zerato, it can be Dark Greffer, it can be Armageddonite, it can be Gores, it can be a variety of things. And because it's such a good card, you have to use it wisely, because its effect says this card cannot be normally summoned. It must be first summoned by having 5 Dark, so you have to set it up a bit, but all of this dumping power makes it somewhat easy. Once per turn, you can banish 1 Dark to target 1 Dark monster in your graveyard and special summon it. So, this card is not really easy to bring out, but it is a very valuable card. And its ability to basically be a monster reborn on legs, usually to bring this guy out and just nuke your opponent's front row, is amazing. The trap lineup, I'm not gonna lie to you, the Call the Haunted are the staples. Basically, I love Mirror Force and my friend loves Mirror Force, so maybe you guys can change that to something you prefer. Maybe Solemn Warning. I personally hate Solemn Warning, and I will make a video on that soon. But besides that, this deck is very, very, very powerful in terms of how much attack power you can get on the field. And it's also very destructive in terms of Dark Arm Dragon, BLS, Dark Lord Zerato. So this deck basically uses and manipulates a lot of boss monsters to do all of the dirty work. Now, going into the side deck, I love DD Crow. DD Crow is awesome for this deck because not only does it banish your opponent's cards, but it also gives you a Dark in the grave that you can use with the Dark Creator. Max C helps by, keeping up with the meta, wind-ups, all of those decks that basically spam, heretics maybe. Closed Forest to beat Dark Worlds. Personally, I don't really think they're a problem, but I like the siding card. MST. Now, this is really, really, really important because this deck does not main MSTs. But it does use a Heavy Storm, but it doesn't main MSTs because there's essentially no space for it. All of these cards are basically really important to the deck. So, when you're putting in an MST, it has to be against a deck that sets a ton of back row, because back row isn't very nice with this deck. System of a Down, there's a lot of machine decks, Machine of Gargias, Gadgets, all of those decks. You can probably use System Down to basically just wipe them all out. Soul Release, my favorite siding card. I don't care what anybody says, I'm going to use this card for the rest of my life. And Prohibition, I guess you could say to just pick one card to say, no use, bitch. Alright, so in the extra deck you have Shining and Escuridao. These 2 guys. Now, you have a lot of darks, you have a lot of lights. Maybe you can put in the Elemental Hero, the Wind. I personally don't think it's really that big of a deal. This deck is basically a chaos deck. And, you know, people say that chaos decks are dead by themselves, but I think this is the best way to use a variety of light and dark monsters by themselves. Catastor, I have a lot of level 4s and Veilers, so that's basically the only way you can bring it out. I don't really think this should be a sinking deck, but, you know, Veiler can sometimes be used with the level 4, and there's a million of them. So, Catastor's always a good extra deck card, plus he's dark. Got Cowboy, I mean, I didn't really care to be honest, I don't really like this card, but everybody else does, so what the hell. Heliopolis, this card's used a lot, and it's really good for this deck, because this deck is also a card that, this is a card that can manipulate dark monsters. You overlay 2 Zeratos, dump a Zerato, maybe get out a Dark Arm. Basically the point of this deck is you want to manipulate the graveyard as much as you can so that you can bring out the Dark Creator, and you bring out Zerato. Now I didn't mention earlier, and now I remember, you must control no monsters, so you have to bring him out first. That's kind of hard. But essentially, what you want to do is you might want to exceed, summon, maybe crash into a monster. You need to get those darks in the graveyard first. So that's why these cards are the most important. Then, you know, you can basically OTK once those monsters eventually die. I mean, this deck isn't a deck that you want your monsters to stay alive. So I'm telling you that right now. Don't try to keep your monsters alive. Keep in mind that they will die. Your monsters will have to die to get out the Dark Creator, but he will be worth it, I promise. Levier the Sea Dragon with Tour Guide, Maestro, random level 4s, Leviathan, Acid Golem. All these guys are basically staples, and I personally like Black Ship of Corn and Photon Butterfly. I'm not going to say that stupid ass name. And then Zed Mines is also the Tour Guide engine. So, guys, this is basically a Dark Assault deck. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. I would really like to know what you guys think about this deck. How would you guys build this deck? So, that's the end of the video. Have a great day, guys.